Hi, welcome to the Art of Shame-Free Living podcast. So last week you probably heard, maybe you didn't watch that episode or listen to that episode yet, where I talked about meditation. And I said that I was on my way to a 7-day silent meditation retreat, and that I would probably have a lot more to say about meditation when I got back. And holy cow, do I ever. I am going to fit this in a pretty short episode still, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but I will say that yes, it's completely different than what I thought last week, which is fascinating to have such a stark contrast where I talk about meditation one week and then talk about it in a very different way the week after. So years and years ago, I don't even remember how many, maybe 4 or 5, 6 years ago, the thought of meditation came into my mind. And I really knew that for some reason it was for me. I didn't know why. So then I would pay attention whenever I heard somebody talk about it. I would learn little bits here and there. Over time, I watched YouTube videos, did guided meditations. I even did some little free trainings on meditation so that I could get pretty well versed in meditation. So I felt like my regular meditation practice was pretty robust. I meditated every day, even if it wasn't for very long. I felt like I knew a lot about meditation. And for me, it was kind of this box that I would check off that I knew helped me to feel more emotionally regulated, and also helped me feel like my thoughts were a little bit more malleable so that when they would come in, I would feel more flexibility around my thinking and around being able to change my thinking. And those things are true. And yes, meditation does that. But I feel like I entered this portal of meditation is so much more than that. That meditation is a deeply spiritual practice. That meditation is a portal, a way in which you can come back to yourself, feel into yourself, where you can come back to your oneness, where you can feel connected to Creator, God, Source, whatever your belief is, that we all get to feel that feeling. And by whatever your belief is, I mean, in this room of 42 people in which we were meditating, we all felt deeply connected to each other and to some higher source, even though all of us had very different religious beliefs. There was someone there that was atheist. There was someone who had never been raised Christian. There were people who had been raised Christian but had left Christianity. My husband and I were there and were Christian. The man who was speaking had left Christianity, become Buddhist for several decades, and then came back to Christianity again. So he talked a lot about Buddhism and Sufism mixed in with when he was teaching about Christianity. So it was just like really rich and vibrant and colorful as far as different beliefs and opinions and ideas go. Yet we were still able to feel such oneness, such unity with each other. Something I find really interesting is that when you read about pretty much any ancient tradition, religion, wisdom, there's a concept of oneness in all of them. In Judaism, they believe that we are all part of the Creator, part of the whole, part of God. And because we are, and God is in with everybody, then we're all interconnected. There's beliefs that talk about this in the Bible as well. A lot of Christians believe in this concept of oneness. But no matter where you turn, it seems like oneness is like a general rule of thumb. It's a truth that you seem to find everywhere. And I really felt that way as we were gone, which is interesting because there wasn't a lot of speaking. So it's interesting to feel so connected to other people in this kind of deep, powerful, abiding way without a lot of speaking. So yes, it was a 7-day silent meditation retreat, but in the past, I've researched meditation retreats and I was looking for one that was silent. I did find some in Alberta and I found some in Washington, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Vipassana meditation is a minimum of 10 days and it's very strict silence, super strict silence the whole time, as in no phones, no books that you can even read, no speaking aloud at all. And that felt a little bit extreme for what I was looking for, and also a long time to start off with. I emailed them and was like, can I start with 3 days? And they were like, no, 10. And I was like, oh, I don't know. So the man that I was learning from, his name is Thomas McConkie. He's fabulous. You should go listen to his podcast, One Heart, One Mind. He has a lot of guided meditations there, and his presence is soothing. I had met him years ago. I knew I felt really connected to him. I messaged him to say, do you take students of any kind? Like, I know you're not a coach, but do you mentor people or something? So he directed me to an online program he had that I was a part of for a little while. And when I found out he was doing meditation retreats, I was like, yes, this feels like a good fit. Side note story about him is that I met him at a conference in the fall, like a year ago. And what I noticed about him was this deep and abiding presence. Like as soon as I met him, he felt different to me than other humans feel. I know that's like a weird way to describe it, but it just like, I could feel something different about him. And I knew that he had tapped into something different, some different realm, some different way of being that I had not yet. And I remember writing down in my little journal that weekend, because it was a conference where we were listening to a bunch of speakers. I remember writing down, one day before I die, I want to experience that. I want to be that. So fast forward back to the retreat again, I found out that he did meditation retreats. It was much more focused on noble silence being choosing when to speak and when not to, not using speech as a way to entertain or ignore whatever's coming up within you. And so anytime we did speak, it was very intentional. So there would be meditation practices where we would converse, where there would be talking, there would be feedback, or where we would give like a one-word answer of how we were feeling, doing like a check-in. But there was lots of teaching as well. It wasn't all just meditation. And a lot of the teaching was interactive. And then in between eating time, because you always were silent during eating, and meditation time, there was little breaks, and you could kind of decide, you could choose your own level of silence. So some people were a little more chatty than other people were, but definitely very little talking compared to like the norm, I would say, which was good for me as like an intro to all of this. For the first day and for the last day, you're kind of easing into it and easing out of it. It's actually 8 different days. You start like halfway through the day on the first day and end halfway through the day on the 8th day. So fast forward, I get to this retreat, and I know in the back of my mind, like there's something here for me. I know that I've been called to this. I've felt this niggling inside for a long time, not really knowing why or what I was there for. And also having this experience in the back of my mind, meeting this man and understanding that like he had a different presence about him than others did. And that I wanted to be that more. I wanted to uncover that about myself more. And I didn't really know why. So fast forward to meditation, we're doing all these meditation practices, and I come to realize over the course of the week that meditation isn't like a box that you check off to get your meditation done so that you can be more regulated or have more malleability of thought. Those are just side effects of meditation, and meditation being a really deeply spiritual practice to help you come back to you again, to help you listen to what's happening inside, to help you find focus, concentration, alertness, awareness. One of the quotes that he gave was this man who talked about attention deficit, our world, living in a world of attention deficit. And he said, it's not attention deficit. We actually have tons of attention. We're just switching our attention all of the time. We have like almost too much attention. It's awareness deficit. And I think what we focused so much on over the course of the week was awareness, bringing yourself back to your breath over and over and over again. And somehow through that, there's like spiritual shifts that happen. And I don't know how exactly. I don't know how that works, except that I think that silence is innately healing. I think stillness is innately healing. And I think in our world of busy, go, go, distract all of the time, that we miss out on the healing that silence offers us. And I think there's a reason why people are being pulled more towards meditation, towards mindfulness, towards stillness, because I think there's something innately healing in the silence. When you go into a space for 7 days with lots of random strangers and you're sitting in your thing, you're quiet, you're still, there's nowhere for you to go with your thoughts or your feelings. There's nowhere to distract you. There's nobody to talk through it. It's like you confronting whatever's coming up within you. And it was pretty neat and special and like holy space to be in, to watch everybody go through their own levels of that. So noble silence, not strict silence. So for those of you that are like, I couldn't do the 7 days of silence, you absolutely could do it. My husband, who's not much of a talker, was like, I felt like there was quite a bit of talking. Me, who's a big talker, was like, I felt like that was still pretty hard for me, but definitely not all the way silent the whole time, at least for the one that I went to. But I would say there's a few big shifts that I understood. One is that it's not a checklist, that it's like a portal. It's an avenue of healing and of growth, and that silence is the thing that heals, that it's very powerful. It's very strong, and it's very healing. Another concept that I learned about, I'm going to call gentle kindness. So for the first 3 or 4 days, you're doing the same kind of meditation over and over and over again. So you're sitting up in this posture and you're just focusing on your breath. You can focus on your whole torso. You can focus on just your breath in your lungs. You can focus on just the air in your nostrils. You don't actually manipulate your breath. I always thought like you were trying to breathe in more deeply and trying to exhale more deeply. You actually don't manipulate the breath at all. You just focus on the breath that already is. So you notice that you're breathing in You notice that you're breathing out. You notice where you feel that breath, and you focus really intently. Like your focus point is that one point. So I would always do right at the very end of my nose where the air is coming in the nostrils. And I would focus right in great detail on that. Then your awareness would kind of go, maybe your attention flows and follows. And then you're like, oh, wait, back to my breath again. And you're constantly like kind of going in and out of awareness, focusing back on your nose and your breath, and then out, and then back in, and then out. And it's easy to move into our typical mentality of like, oh, this is so hard, or this is so boring, or I'm getting this wrong, or whatever. Getting it wrong as in it's really hard to just stay focused on your breath over and over and over again. We would start meditating at 6 a.m. We would close every night at 9 p.m. We would have breaks for meditative work practices or meditative study or meditative walks or meals. But there is a lot of meditation time, about 8 hours a day. So all that to say, your mind is losing focus. You're coming back to breath, losing focus, coming back to breath. Instead of feeling like I'm doing this wrong, I'm never going to get this, this is so hard, whatever. You're reminding yourself when you notice that you have lost attention and you're coming back to your nose, coming back to your breath, you're like, I'm awake. Like you're recognizing like, thank you. Like I'm awake. Thanks for reminding me. Mind, breath, soul, body, whatever. Thanks for reminding me back to my nose, back to my breath. And every time you're like lose awareness and then you're like, oh yeah, thanks. Like I'm awake. And there was something about that simple, just tuning back into the breath in a way that was so kind and so gentle and almost like grateful. Like, oh yeah, this is what it is. This is what we're focusing on. Thank you. Thank you for that reminder. That helped me over the week be really kind with my unkindness. So anytime that my mind was like, I don't know if this is working. I don't know if I know anything. I don't know if this is going to get any better. That I could bring some like of that softness, that kindness, like I was bringing back to my breath. I could bring that back to my thinking. And those don't necessarily feel correlated. Maybe they do. Maybe you already see the correlation. But in my mind, they didn't necessarily feel correlated in the beginning. But over time, I really could feel that. I really could feel this concept of gentle kindness landing for me. So who knew that just breathing and sitting would be so transformative? The other, I would say, biggest shift that I felt is I have this monthly group program for women. I coach men as well, but in my women's program, it's called the Creation Room. Every month we have a different intention. And so the intention usually just comes like I have an idea like a week before the next month and I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. So over the last 6 months or so, there has been so much like creating space, non-doing, rest, stillness. We even had a month of meditation. So much of the like pulling back, like getting away from rush and hurry. Some of us, including me, read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And so we talked a little bit about that. And such a cool book, such an interesting book. But I feel like my life lesson, the lesson that the universe has been giving me lately has been this concept of hurry. And I feel like I've created a lot of empty space and empty time in my calendar, in my life, in my business. And so I was feeling like I've created a lot of space. I've created a lot of slowness. But one of my coaching friends said one time, I experience life slowly. And if you know anything about personality types, I'm a manifesting generator 2/4, Enneagram 7. So think fast, talk fast, do fast. That's kind of my MO. If you've been listening to this podcast, you might have already gotten that vibe. So when she said that to me, I was like, oh, I want that too. Like she gets a lot done, but she experiences life slowly. So I wrote that down in my book. I have a little journal that she gave me actually that says, everything I write in this journal comes true. And I love it. So I wrote in there, I experience life slow. I experience time slowly. And that is something I've really been working through over the past 6 months or so. How does that feel? What does that look like? But I could tell leading up to the retreat that there was an imbalance. I didn't know what the imbalance was coming from. There wasn't something really overtly in my life that was making that happen, but I could feel it. It felt like a spinning wheel, or it felt like a vacuum that was like sucking everything in. Like I could just feel it up here, and it was like fast, and it felt like it was there, even though I was structurally making changes externally out here. And that's what feels like it switched. And it feels like a very powerful and important switch in that no matter what's happening out here, I'm feeling slower. I'm feeling less rushed. I'm feeling more silence and more stillness within me. I think part of that is social media. I was off social media for that whole week, and I was off my phone almost entirely that whole week too, besides connecting with clients. And that also felt really different. And so coming back from that, one of the insights that I had as we were kind of doing this integration chat at the end of our meditation, like what do we want to take back with us, was I don't want to just go back and be like, what did I learn at retreat and how can I like incorporate that in my life? I wanted to recognize that meditation life, retreat life was more living than my life had been. And how can I reorient my life to fit in with retreat life instead so that I can be in that energetic space always. So yes, part of that's going to be meditation regularly, which I've been doing, but I think it's more than that. And so I'm still figuring out how that fits in with things like social media or spending time on my phone or I don't know, all of the things that we get sucked into. But I'm confident that I'll find the answer, that I'll find the balance, that I'll be able to find it from the space of feeling slowness and still be able to incorporate the things that I need and want to do without it feeling like it's taking away from the slowness that I feel within. And I'm just so much more comfortable with silence, which is also a really big deal for me. If you know me, you'll understand that, but it really feels like a big deal. And it's been really, I think, transformative for my own clients too, in the way that I'm able to be, in the presence that I feel now. So lots of different things that I feel like I learned. One thing I want to leave with you, well, maybe more than one thing, of just like practical like meditation how-tos. We had meditation pillows. They were like beneath our bum and you can either kneel or sit cross-legged. And so your bum is elevated and your knees are lower, but you want to make sure that your knees are still contacting the ground. So you can put pillows or something underneath that so that you always feel supported. Your spine is straight and your spinal cord being like stacked on top of each other, like dominoes stacking on each other. You're looking for that sweet spot where it feels like completely straight. Your head slightly tilted down to the ground, just barely tilt. Slight smile on your face, because why not? Also, shoulders kind of down like they're hanging loosely, and stomach out like it's like, like the Buddha images that you see where it's just puffing out the tummy, like not intentionally puffing out the tummy, but just relaxed tummy. And then heart open. And that can either be like moving the chest up a little bit or just imagining heart open. That's the structure in which we would do over and over and over again. And then again, just focus back on our breath, checking our posture, focusing back on our breath. And that's the simple art of it. That's it in its simplicity. There's a lot of different kinds of meditation that we did that were fantastic. I'll go over a couple of kinds, but that's what I would start with if you're looking, and try it for 20 minutes. See if you can go for a little while, find some stillness, and go from there. One of the things that I liked that he talked about was the window of tolerance. So Dan Siegel talks about this window of tolerance of like things that are outside our tolerance and things that aren't. We don't want to push ourselves like way out and overwhelm ourselves in this huge way. And so he would often be like, okay, can you tolerate this? Can you handle this? Where are you at? Because sometimes things can push us out of that. And one thing that I liked was he would have us open our heart and imagine bringing people in. So it could be like nature, it could be like a tree, it could be a dog that's passed away, it could be a person that you love that is currently alive or that has passed on. You can imagine them in your heart with you, and that sometimes can kind of build up that strength, build up that window of tolerance, increase it a little bit. A couple other little practices that we did. We did one where you would focus on something intentionally. So like as soon as your attention went to, oh, I hear a sound, you'd focus on that sound. Oh, I feel this thing, I'd focus on that feeling. Oh, I feel something in my shoulder, you'd focus on that feeling. And you just kind of go focusing on all of the things. Another way we did it was focusing on nothing. So as soon as your attention starts to focus back on your breath, which it did because we were so trained to do that, we'd be like, oh no, nothing. Oh no, nothing. It was like the opposite of it. It was like focusing on nothing, do nothing instead of do something. Another one we did was kind of like chanting, like Gregorian chanting, and you'd take a scripture verse or a poem and it would have a specific tone, rhythm, sound to it. And we would sing that over and over and over and over again. That was very beautiful. We did some vocal intonation where it would be singing a sound, but just one kind of like an ooh or usually at a vowel sound. And you kind of find your pitch and you kind of listen to other people's pitch so that you can kind of not match, but see how it sounds. And then you're also seeing how it feels within you and kind of moving your voice to find what feels good for you that day. That was a really beautiful way to start off with 6 o'clock in the morning. Everything's dark. There's candles in the front and we're all doing vocal intonations or chant. We also did something called Lectio Divino, which is you read like a passage of scripture or like a Rumi verse or something over a few times. And then you notice that like one word or one phrase will kind of pop out at you. And then you imagine that word or phrase over and over and over again, or you focus on it. And as you focus on it, your mind will kind of wander and things will kind of come in. You'll kind of start to understand it and you'll just be pondering on what it means to you. Meaning will be made. And you sit in the feeling of that. And then you sit in the feeling of gratitude that you give back up again to source, to God, to creator, thanking them for this experience that you had. And then you sit in that feeling. And that's another form too. So I think there's so many different forms of meditation we can do. And I feel like I learned so much and there's so much to say in a little time, but I like to keep these podcasts and YouTube episodes really short so that they're really digestible for everyone. But if you have specific comments or questions, comment below the video or send me a message. I'd love to chat more about it with you. But again, the retreat that I went to was with Thomas McConkie, a 7-day silent meditation retreat. But just look for a retreat near you. And if you're in this area, or if you're willing to fly to this area, I'm going to be doing a 3-day retreat in December 4th, 5th, and 6th, just outside of Waterton Lakes National Park. This one is going to be for women. I'll talk about that in a minute, actually. This one's going to be for women. It's going to be manifestation and meditation. And so we're going to be doing the shame work that I talk about on this podcast, manifestation work being the opposite of that shame work. The other side of it, I should say, the other side of shame work. So we'll be doing all of that for 3 full days. It'll be fabulous. So you can come join us there. And on November 1st, I'm going to be doing my first in-person event that includes everyone, men and women, not necessarily all ages, but all adult ages in Cardston, Alberta at the Remington Museum Theater. So you can get tickets for that also. So I will try to send the links out somewhere. I'll have them posted somewhere here so that you can click on those and find out. Or you can send me a message on Instagram at its.crystal.noel. All right, thanks for being here. If you've enjoyed these episodes, I would love it if you could share it with someone, if you could subscribe, follow, whatever you can do on the platform that you're listening on, because that really helps the algorithm know this is something important, this is valuable, and we want other people to hear it, especially this episode, especially meditation. I think it's really powerful. So thanks for being here. We'll see you next week.